What's going on? It is Jay Bradford on the Win the Day with Jay show. I'm here with my man, Andrew. Andrew, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks a lot, Jay. Appreciate it.
Man, look, you and I have shared a lot of hikes, a lot of workouts,
Yeah.
a lot of moments over the last probably 10 plus years. But I want to start by letting the listeners hear about your story and, how would you describe who you are and what drives you?
Man, that's a big, broad question. First things first, I like to identify myself as a follower of Jesus, first and foremost. And then I'm a father, I'm a husband. Other than that, I hope I'm a good friend to lots of folks. And if that's enough to summarize me, I'll be happy with that.
Man, I love it. Andrew Varvoutis, my guy. I mean, look, I want to tell the listeners and the viewers, Andrew, how the very first time I met you.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, how tall are you, by the way, for the people not watching on YouTube?
I'm about 6'4".
6'4". This guy's a unit, okay? So he's like, I refer to Andrew all the time as the Renaissance man, but Andrew, 6'4", and I walk into a local CrossFit gym, 8 or 9 years ago, Godspeed, where I met Andrew for the first time. First guy I saw was you in there. And my man has 225 on the power clean. He had these crazy socks pulled up, some knee braces. Beard was really big back then, much thicker than it is right now.
It goes through phases.
So, it was a good 3 more inches probably on there. And so I'm looking at this cat, and then he had like a tank top on, and it was dead heat. I think it was like August, right in the middle of the summer when I first joined. And it was hot as blue blazes in the Godspeed. And anyway, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm 300 plus pounds, and I walk in there, and Andrew comes up to me. Classic Andrew, knowing you now, but he comes up to me, "What's up, man? How you doing?" You're just super nice to me. Like very first time I met you, super nice guy, introducing me to the gym, kind of gives me the lay of the land. I'd never done CrossFit, for all of our listeners and viewers. I'm like walking there. I was clueless, and Andrew's in there and, kind of I didn't work out with him because he's a pretty big, strong guy, but we kind of chopped up a little bit and then ended up praying. You were like, "Man, let me pray with you." This is the first time I met you. And I was like, this guy is pretty awesome. And 10 years later, one of my best friends and a great mentor in my life and just a good person. That's why I want to have you on Win the Day. But I thought about that as I was preparing to record. That just to me exemplifies who Andrew is to me.
Well, yeah, you see, the first time you do something is always the first time you do something, right? And you can't know what you don't know, right? So I know that the gym can be an intimidating place for a lot of guys. And as we all know, your journey, where you are now, it was, you were at a different place in that journey. I wanted to reach out and support, make you feel comfortable, kind of lower the intimidation factor around the gym. Because first time you walk in, you see these people doing stuff, but the reality is I had a first day.
Yeah.
I had a first day there. I didn't know any of those things. And actually, you're not the only person I've done that to. I did that to one other guy. And so I said, "Hey, man, it's your first day." Yeah. I said, "Well, man, you don't worry. You're going to catch on to all this stuff. It'll be a breeze." I said, "What kind of stuff have you been doing?" He said, "Well, my work has some stuff that I can do." I'm like, "Dude, that's awesome, man. You must work for a really good company that they provide you like workout stuff and whatever." I'm like, "Where do you work?" And he said, "The Los Angeles Dodgers." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, that makes a little bit more sense on why they've got you on a workout routine."
He had a little bit of equipment, huh, Andrew?
Yeah.
Oh, man. And, Andrew, I didn't even bring up, and I don't want to make light of this, but I didn't even bring up who you are professionally, because to be honest with you, the person I know and Andrew that's in my life, has nothing to do with what you do professionally. But I do want to mention my man Andrew is, senior executive director of NECA, Gulf Coast South chapter.
Gulf Coast chapter,
NECA. What does NECA stand for, Andrew?
The National Electrical Contractors Association.
Yeah. For those of y'all, I still don't know. I think it's the CIA. I still don't know what he does or how he does it, but they work with electrical contractors.
Yeah. none of my friends really understand what I do. I get grief about it in different ways and different times, but you're right. I don't want to identify myself by what I do for a living.
Yeah.
That's not who I am. It's very common in our culture today, especially with men. The first time you meet somebody, it's like the second question you ask is, what do you do for a living?
Yes.
Because that's how the culture has tried to kind of identify us. It's also a way people try to put value and worth on an individual is what they do for a living. And I've worked actively to resist some of that because I don't love that as a way that we're identifying ourselves.
Yeah, and that speaks volumes to who you are, and I think the listeners are going to love this episode because, I wanted to share that because you are a leader in business and in your industry, and you travel all the world. You do conferences, you help negotiate, bargaining, collective bargaining agreement, a lot of stuff you guys do. And I know a little bit of that because I'm close to you, but that's not who I know. And that's not who I think most of the world knows. And I think that's really cool. To me as a person, that always stood out to me because I think I knew you for a year or two before I even knew what you did, like professionally.
Right.
I just knew you as Andrew from Godspeed. And matter of fact, in my phone, to this day, I still have you because I think you gave your number to me like the second day I met you in the gym, probably. But I put in there Andrew parentheses Godspeed, and that's how I still have him in my phone.
R.I.P. Godspeed.
Yeah, R.I.P. Godspeed. But so just so you guys can get an idea of Andrew, who he is physically, and some of the things that you've accomplished just in the time I've known you. My man has done a 40-mile run on your 40th birthday.
Yeah.
40 miles. Where was that at, Andrew?
I ended up doing the race in Missouri, and it was a weird turn of events, but a guy I met as a training partner was running a trail that ended in St. Louis. Bill Smith was down here, but lived up there. We had met on a random run out at Oak Mountain. First day, I was supposed to meet a group. The group wasn't there. So Bill comes running along. I was struggling to get my headphones to work. I was really in a just a grumpy mood. The running group wasn't there. So anyway, I meet up with Bill and we just start running. I said, "Hey man, can I run with you?" He said, "Yeah." So we go run. We get back to the place to turn into the car. And so I start turning. He's like, "Oh, are you done?" Bill's like 66 years old,
Wow.
He's done the 10 hardest marathons in the U.S. He's done a marathon in every state, all of this in his 60s. And I said, "Well, if you're not done, I'm not done." So I went back and I said, "How far are we going?" And he said, 17 miles. I said, "Okay, well, to that day, that was the longest. I'd never run that far before that day. But if a 66-year-old man is going to do it, then I figured I'll jump in and stay with him.
Man, I love it.
So he was doing this trail run, and the longest day of his race was 43 miles. And I knew that he was really worried about that day because the mileage was stacking up day after day. So what I did was I got in touch with his running coach, and I found out where he was going to be on that day. And I sat at the trailhead at like 6 a.m. And he shows up and he was trying to figure out what direction he was supposed to go. And I looked up at him. I said, "Well, hey, man, I'm going this way if you want to go with me." And man, we were 10 miles in and he's still like, "I can't believe you're here." But it was just, I wanted to surprise him and be there for him on his hardest day.
Man, that right there, that is the Varv that I know right there. I mean, my man travels all the way up to Missouri to do a run like that and shows up. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And I remember you sharing the story when we were hiking about that. So 40-mile run on your 40th birthday. You did the Lake Martin 50-mile run.
Right, yeah.
I mean, look, so we talk about this like it says, 50-mile run, 40. These are incredible physical feats. You know what I mean? I've done a half marathon too, did a Mammoth March. We'll talk about that with you. And I couldn't imagine right now, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my life, and running 50 miles or 40 miles, that's an incredible distance. I mean, that's a big physical toll on your body.
Yeah, it is. And I think kind of what attracted me to it and the thing that has motivated me through it is really more the mental challenge than the physical.
Correct.
And so being able to set forth and understand that it is your mind that starts limiting where you think you're physically able to go in a lot of ways, especially from an endurance perspective. And so just kind of getting into the mindset and understanding that your body is strong enough to keep going. It's your mind. Then so one of the reasons why I like doing somewhat ridiculous things like that. I mean, there's guys and podcast listeners are listening to guys that do a lot more incredible than me. So I'm not putting myself on the level of any of those guys, but when you the hardest thing you've ever done is the hardest thing you've ever done, right? And so once you make that harder and you go through the idea of just doing hard things, you find that hard things become easier.
Correct.
And so you're building the strength of the mental fortitude when you're pushing those physical boundaries.
Man, hey, you summed it up amazing. I mean, that is so true, but it still doesn't negate the fact, Andrew, you're 6'4", 200 and something pound big guy, muscular, that works out. I mean, you're not the average runner. You know what I mean?
No, I joke about it. That anybody who can beat me in a race, I can deadlift more than that, because you see these little guys going through. And that was one of the things where one of the first things I really did kind of in that level was triathlons. And so I did a couple of triathlons, but they've got a Clydesdale division, right? And so I'm like, well, there's what I need. I need that Clydesdale. So first one I competed in, the Clydesdale weight class was 210 maybe. So anybody over 210 was a Clydesdale. Well, I came in third, and I'm standing there on the podium, and I'm looking at and both of the other guys are 6'6" collegiate swimmers.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, they weighed like 207 or 212 or whatever it was, right? Yeah. I mean, they barely made that Clydesdale division. And I was well into that Clydesdale division.
So you were well over that, huh?
So it just happened to be that the next year they changed the weight class to 225. And so the next year I did the same one, competed in the Clydesdale, and I was able to win the 225. So,
wow.
When you put a weight class in there, sometimes that helps me out.
Man, I didn't know you won. I've never known that about you. I knew you did two turtle, but I didn't know you won one.
I didn't show up to lose.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, winners win. Hey, we're winning the day. That's what we do.
That's it.
And, that's why Andrew's in my circle for all y'all that listen. I don't hang out with losers, so man, but all joking aside, so he does triathlon, you did a 50 mile, and then the 22 actually ended up, it was supposed to be a 20 mile.
20 mile, right. Posted as 20 mile.
20 mile, the Mammoth March, which I love, me and Andrew hike. We have an LNH hiking group we do, but the 20 mile hike turned out to be like almost 24.
Yeah.
And so this is just another example, and I tell these stories to set it up for our listeners and our viewers to just kind of know what kind of guy you are, right? I had no idea Andrew was coming that day. So Andrew had been hiking with us some, and he knew I was training for it. I was coming in at a lean 300 pounds for that hike, and I pull up in the parking lot. I'm nervous as all get out anyway, right?
Sure.
And never done an event like that. And I roll up and I see my man Varvoutis hops out. He's like, Jay-Bird, what's going on? And I'm like, I had no idea you were coming. Like I had no idea. But that just goes to the character of the friend you are and the man and the person. He knew that, hey, number one, I and my other guy, Callagher, we needed some help on that. Both of us had never done anything like that. And so I remember you and Christina showing up, and they did the Mammoth March with us. Not only did Andrew do the Mammoth March, y'all, he carried my pack. So I'm loading it down with stuff. And he's like, hey, Jay-Bird, let me see that pack. And I was like, no, I'm good, bro. I'm good. He's like, no, let me see that pack. So he carried my pack. And trust me when I tell you, I was loading that thing down at every water stop and food stop and all that. But I'll never forget the difference that made. And I don't think I could have finished the Mammoth March if you wouldn't have been there. I mean, I'm 100% honest. I've told you this numerous times, but I just wanted to publicly share that with people. I had a cramp at mile 15 that Andrew, he was like a Sherpa out there on the trails. He was massaging the cramps out of me and Callagher. He helped keep us hydrated, carried our pack. Physically, I know now what I know. I couldn't have done that carrying my pack. I think I would have cramped up worse, and that was just incredible. So that's just another testament of just, I think, the character you are. And when I think about winning the day, you come to mind often, right? And that speaks volumes to who you are. And so I wanted our listeners to kind of know who you were, just as a friend, because in this world, there's not a lot of people that have friends that are that close. we have social media is such a great tool. I love social media. I use it for the positivity and to getting, my win today show out and to encourage people and to spread, faith, family pictures, all these things. But there's, people tend to think those are their real friends.
Right. Yeah.
And they're really not, Andrew, but you are a quality person that's probably in the circle of many people because of the friend you are, which is really great. Goes on to what I wanted to ask you next is the faith and purpose. You're involved in an organization called the Man Church.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, we're recording in the studio here in Birmingham, Alabama. And Rick Burgess, the Rick Burgess Show used to be formerly known as the Rick and Bubba Show. They started that and you got hooked up in that. How did you get into doing that?
Well, so to back up a little bit, I mean, for me, as a young man, I struggled identifying with the men I saw in my church. And for those in my age group, you may understand this a little better than some other folks, but I called it the Mr. Rogers Christian, right? Yeah. And so Mr. Rogers, great guy, TV show, and all he did with kids. But that was the image I saw of men in my church. And I couldn't identify with that type of person. And so for a long time, I didn't pursue Jesus. I wasn't in the Word. And look, that's on me, and I'm not blaming anybody else. But one of the things was I just, when I looked around at the men at the church, I didn't want to be like those guys. Yeah. And so it wasn't something that I would strive for, right? So I've had a heart for men's ministry once I started having an awareness to what happened in my life and how that could impact others. Now, Rick, we had known each other through a handful of different acquaintances and friends, but really, again, back to the gym. We met at the gym. We started hanging out there. And so as our friendship kind of grew, he said, man, I could use some help with some of this stuff. And so started going along with him and helping guys get into the discipleship curriculum that the Man Church puts on. And then that led into some different speaking events. And so just got back from South Dakota, had an opportunity to get up there and talk to some men up in South Dakota. And so it's just been a fantastic thing to be involved in.
Well, and what a perfect opportunity for you. It fits who you are, right? Andrew and I hiked together with some other friends, Corey, Steve, Paula, a bunch of Christina. We have a lot of people in our hiking group, and a lot of folks come and go. But Andrew and myself and our other friend Corey and Steve and Chris, we're kind of the nucleus, right? That's always there. But honestly, our LNH hiking is a men's small group. That's kind of how I approach it, right? And we have women and kids and people that come in and out. But I love outdoors. You love outdoors. But I think you and I, another reason why I always gravitated and wanted to let you share is we have the similarity of, we approach it as more of ministry, right? We're doing the physical stuff, but building relationships with people and being real and out on the trails, man. People talk about life and different things. So that fits into right who you are. And
one of the things of just your relationship with Jesus should permeate through all that you have and all that you do. And this idea that, Sunday morning is church day, and that's when you talk about those things, but you don't bring it with you into the workplace or your friend group and those kind of things is something that I at a time definitely used to do, but was just convicted that, it can't be, my relationship with Jesus can't be something that is set off at other parts of my life, right? It's got to be in all things.
Yeah, that is so true. And you walk that right daily. That's why we're on the show. And I want to encourage people because, I've watched the Man Church from a distance. I've been to some of you guys' stuff. I've heard you minister and teach, and that's huge. What a lot of men, Andrew, struggle to find purpose beyond work, like we talked about, right?
Right. Yeah.
Us, we're guys, we put a lot of value on our job and our car and our home and all these things that are worldly, which are great, right? I like having things to enjoy with my family, but how do you help men find a purpose beyond that and in their relationship with Christ? Like what have you been doing to help do that?
Well, part of it is shifting your eyes away from the world, the temporary things, onto what's eternal. right? Layla, my wife, is kind of known for saying it's all going to burn.
Yeah.
It's all going to burn. At the end of the day, you think about just what really matters. People matter. Eternity matters. So much of this other stuff doesn't matter. And even to the things of this world, you can sit around and think about, whether it's whatever the new shiny thing that you wanted a couple of years ago, right? Think back to that now, whether vehicle or clothing or technology, like it's not that great anymore. And it doesn't take long for the new shiny thing to lose its luster, right? So at the end of the day, what really matters?
What matters? Yeah. I mean, in finding value in life, in people, and in your relationship with Lord. And that's, I think for myself, I'm right there with you. These guys, Andrew's a great friend of mine. Him and another friend, they always kid me about my shoes. I love the shoe game,
Yeah. I used to until my foot got so big that I couldn't find shoes anymore.
Andrew wears a size.
I had all the fresh J's when I was like 11.
So Andrew wears a size 15 for all of our listeners and viewers. And the reason I know that is because, we were going through some old hiking shoes. I was like, man, I need to see if Andrew can wear these shoes. I had foot surgery and couldn't wear some, and I'm an 11.5. So I text my guy, Andrew. I was like, hey man, what size shoe you wear? Comes back 15. I go back, well, not going to work. Okay, move on. So, but I like things, right? We do as people, but we don't put all of our value in those, and I value friendships and my family and relationships and my walk with God way more than all that. That's the reason we're having this podcast, is to inspire people, not just in our health and our wellness, but in our spirit, man, and financially and relationally, your family, I just want to inspire people, in your workplace, to be the best, whatever you do at your, but all that is centered around Christ. And so I think you definitely, knowing you and watching you over the years, like, this is not some 2-month deal where I've seen you for a couple months. I mean, it's 10 years. And you've seen me at my worst and my best, and you've always been just a really good, uplifting guy, which speaks volumes too, to who you are. And I'm sure you do that in your other walk with other men and at the men's church. So, but if that's not enough, okay, my man, Andrew, right? I mean, so he's 40 miles, 50 mile, Mammoth March guy, doing men's ministry, leading the company, organization, but also you and your lovely wife, Layla, are foster parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't, and this is something interesting. I don't think I knew that, Andrew, till about 3 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I think we were hiking at
Did you wonder why my kids kept disappearing or why they were different colors?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly I never asked, and I'm a bit of an overshare. I like to talk and communicate, but I always wondered. Yeah, shocker. I always wondered. Man, Andrew's got, I never just didn't want to come out and ask, right? Yeah. And I was thinking, but one day we were on a trail, we were at Red Mountain. I don't forget Red Mountain, park here. And you were talking about, fostering and everything. So 13 children that you and Layla have fostered over your, however many years.
Yeah. It's been about 15 years. So we were, there's the long and the short and somewhere in the middle story. But growing up as a kid, my mother was a social worker who worked in foster and adoption. And so I had foster siblings when I was a kid. We were a certified foster home. And I still have some relationships with guys that lived in my home when, we were 8-10 years old. So it's something that I've been aware of and a part of for a long time. It's something that I had considered, but really didn't have any conversations with Layla about, because the reality is she does all the work, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to put that expectation on her, but our church as we were walking through Scripture, got into the book of James and seeing what it looked like to care for widows and orphans that were in distress. Mm-hmm. And we really started praying how to be obedient to that command, and found that we were called into foster care to be a foster family. And so we started down that journey. At the time, I think my wife was pregnant with my daughter, Sophia, who's 15 now, when we first started considering that. And so, of course, we had to go through, getting Sophia out and welcoming her in. And then we started the process of the training to get our home certified. And by the time Sophia was maybe 2, we had our first placement, and been going through it ever since. We've had generally the shortest is about 6 months. The longest we've had has been over 2 years.
Wow.
We had a sibling group, but other than that, we used to primarily get newborns from the hospital. Our age has kind of gone up a little bit right now, but it's been an incredible journey for all of us in the family.
I mean, that is, I'm just sitting here listening to you share from your heart about that. I mean, number one, it's a calling, right? I don't think anyone could be a foster parent or be an adequate foster parent without a true calling and the love of the Lord, because that is a huge undertaking and responsibility. I mean, you're taking a life that, let's just be real. I mean, it was in shambles, right? That's why they're in foster care, for whatever reason,
Right.
Typically is not a good.
No, there's no good reason to come into foster care.
Yeah,
right?
no good. And knowing you and your wife and your 2 children, that's really incredible. Like I thought a lot about that. That's a huge deal for listeners that don't know the whole foster care scenario.
Well, and that's where I would encourage anybody to consider the distinctions between God's commands and God's callings.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a command to care for widows and orphans. That's for every believer in Jesus is supposed to be caring for widows and orphans. And there are a lot of other commands for us. But then you narrow that down into what the calling looks like, specific to you, to your family, whatever that may be, and how you can obey the commands through the specific calling that God has placed on you. And so that's going to consider your gifts and your talents and the different ways that He has created you to fulfill those commands. But when you're operating in the center of your calling, you're in the middle of God's will. There's no better place to be. And it's not, that doesn't make it easy, right? Following Jesus is not an easy thing. And we get a lot of questions about, I couldn't do that. It would be so hard when they left. And my wife and I kind of joke to each other after those people say that, and they're well-intentioned people, but it's like, yeah, it's totally easy for us. We're so cold-hearted. We don't care at all when they leave, but it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it's worth it.
You guys had a foster child, I don't know, a couple months ago. I think a young man or 2, they came and went, and I think you had a younger one. But along that same time frame, right, when you guys were doing that, my wife and I are huge dog people. And so she wanted a small dog, Andrew. And we had a big guy, Oscar. He's our pit bull mix. Love the guy to death. And so my wife, we found a Chihuahua. And so this Chihuahua needed like a foster home, basically. That's what we did. And her name was Maggie, a little Chihuahua. We had Maggie for about, I want to say like 3 weeks. So we basically like fostered her. I mean, she was mangy looking and all this kind of stuff. We fostered her, got her like healthy. Erica got her all these little clothes, all this cool little stuff, right? And then she went to a Chihuahua rescue place where they found her a forever home. And I'm the one, okay, so my wife, and now that I'm even telling this story, thinking about it, I hope, Erica listens to all of our episodes, so she's going to crack up. But I don't know how I got to be the one to do the drop off of Maggie. You know what I mean? Like, it was her dog. You know what I mean, Andrew? Like, she's the one that got Maggie. So anyway, I go meet the lady in a local parking lot and give her Maggie. And I was like, dude, that was the hardest thing I ever did. I mean, we only had the dog 3 weeks or so. And I actually thought about you. I almost called you that day we were leaving, but it was a dog. So I'm thinking, I'm not compare a dog to a kid, you know what I mean?
No, I get it.
But the symbolism there, what I'm getting at is that was really hard, you know what I mean? And I realized right then that I could never be a foster parent because, man, I get so attached. I'm over attached. And not that you don't, but you and Layla have such a heart to help. You have to overlook and compartmentalize those feelings, I'm sure, because you're doing it for a greater good.
Well, for me, that there's a time where, people say the Lord spoke to them, and I've never heard like an audible voice, but one of the things that I go back to every time a kid leaves, or every time there's just a struggle with that. So our first foster kid left and went to an adoptive home. And so we had the opportunity to adopt, and we were praying through that, and just felt like that wasn't what we were supposed to do, that we were supposed to continue in foster care. And at some point, the house gets full, right? So the day he left, I'm standing in his room, and I'm looking at this empty crib with the blanket and little, elephant Snuggie that was in there with him. And I was just wrecked. I mean, there was,
I can't imagine.
Yeah. And the Lord told me in that moment, you do your job and I'll do mine. And so I trust that he's sovereign. He loves these kids more than we could ever imagine. And so I trust him to handle the other stuff. And, sometimes that's easier than others because our foster care system is broken, and social workers are sinful people like the rest of us, and judges and all those things. But ultimately, the Lord is sovereign over all of those things. And so he's given me a job to do. And so we do that job as a family and leave the rest, what we can't control, we're not worried with. Right?
What a great perspective. What a great perspective for our listeners to just really digest what you just said. I think so many times, especially as believers, we worry about stuff outside of our control,
Sure.
but you're walking in the path God designed you to do. And he's like, hey, I got this, Andrew. You do what you do. I got this. And I think we can take that in so many areas of our life. And that's really incredible. Kind of goes into the next segment I wanted to talk with you about is, endurance, grit. I wanted to have you on the show because you say, well, I'm not this, I'm not that. I mean, you've done some pretty amazing things that are, require a lot of endurance. I mean, I watched you on these hikes and I watched you train for, you were training for that 40 mile while we were training for the Mammoth March.
It was the 50 mile. Yeah.
Oh, the 50 mile. Yeah.
The 50 miler was, I think it was 2 weeks before the Mammoth March. And that was part of why I didn't sign up, because I'm like, I don't know how the body's going to feel after this 50 miler,
What goes through, knowing you like I do, you seem to enjoy the grind and the process as much as you do the accomplishment of whatever you were training to do, right? So kind of walk through that, like mentally, physically. How does that? Do you enjoy that process?
Yeah, I think it just is kind of the journey that we're all on, right? This is not about a destination, but about a journey, right? And so, I love the win the day because it's just one day better. And I've done some jujitsu stuff. Jujitsu talks about 1%, right? So if you can get 1% better every day, then, over the course of a year, right, you're going to stack up just win after win after win. And, you didn't know me at my heaviest, but I was well over 300 pounds, completely out of shape.
I couldn't imagine that, by the way. I need to see pictures. Layla, can you send in some pictures to us?
There's some out there. Fortunately, most of my shenanigans were done before social media and everybody was walking around with cameras. So there's not a ton of incriminating evidence around, but there's definitely some big pictures. So starting in, I mean, for me, even I started looking for incremental change that I could make on a daily basis to improve things for my life, my health, my fitness, and those kind of things. And so, that's anybody that's on wherever you are on your journey, right? I mean, making some sort of small incremental steps. And so, I mean, you and I have both been on a weight loss journey, and that's a big one for a lot of people. I've talked to them like, you cannot just start on tomorrow. I'm going to eat this 1,200, 1,500 calorie daily diet, and it's going to be super strict, and I'm not going to do anything like I've been doing, no sweets, no this, no that, right? One of the things I've talked to people about as they go through it is like, look, hey, one of the things I did was I started having a salad at lunch, right? I just had a salad at lunch. Now, when I first started that, it was fried chicken.
Yeah, it might have been a fried chicken salad, but
Fried
at least it
chicken
was a salad.
with ranch dressing and cheese and all this but I just had a salad, right? And then I started working my way to where once I was comfortable with that, then it was like, okay, we're going to do a grilled protein, right? And then, it worked down to where it was, the dressing was like lemon juice, but there's no cheese on it. There's no this, there's no that, right? But incremental steps that you can build the consistency on helps you win the day.
Oh,
right?
100%. You and I were texting this morning about what time to record, and it's pretty interesting. This goes to what you just said about the incremental, the small changes, the consistency. I never knew you were big. Like I never knew that till right now.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
how
didn't think you knew that.
I had no idea. I'm sitting here thinking, man, I would love to see Andrew at 300 pounds. I bet Alabama wanted to sign you at defensive end when you were down there in college, by the way.
Oh, those guys are a lot bigger than me.
But, you've witnessed, my journey, right? And everything. We've talked about that consistency. People that meet me now, they had no idea. Like the friends that I meet now, they're, I guess, new to our circle or new to my circle. They just think, oh, Jay, he's a fit guy. He's, they have no idea like how I used to look or be and, the transformation that happened. Right. And the same with you. I've just known Andrew. Like this is the Andrew I've known for 10 years. I would have never thought that you were physically out of shape. Right. And as we were texting today about recording our episode and what time, you said, hey, man, I'm getting some deadlifts. And I was in there doing deadlifts too. And I thought to myself, how just timing is this? You know what I mean? How we're coming to record an episode about winning the day and let you share your story because you win every day. And that's why I wanted to have you on here. And you're in the gym with another great friend of ours, and I'm in the gym but that's just who you are, right? That's just what you do every day. And I think you nailed it about the incremental, the daily small task, and I think so many people, Andrew, I know I was in that, are victim to, they think they got to have all this change at one time.
Right.
Whether it's spiritually, whether it's financially, whether it's your physical, change doesn't occur overnight like that. It takes small incremental things, and you nailed it.
To any listener who's out there considering some sort of change, whatever that may be, I would absolutely just encourage like that small daily thing, right? So, you mentioned the spiritual aspect, right? So, whatever it is that you're wanting to do, setting out discipline that builds into a habit, right? And so, hey, if you just don't feel like you've got that spiritual kind of relationship the way you want it to, proverb a day, right? So there's 31 proverbs, whatever day of the week it is, whatever the date of the month it is, right? Open up Proverbs to that day and read that proverb. Start there, right? Have a moment to pray, right? Start small. Don't try to go to seminary and don't try to, learn all the $3 words that the pastor uses to explain things, whatever else, right? If it's a financial thing, like, hey, you've got to build in the discipline of saving, right? You have to spend less than you make. I don't care how much money you make.
Yeah.
We work with these apprentices that are in our program, and they start out at a percentage of the journeyman's rate. And so I've talked to guys about, look, if you'll just live one step back from where you are. So if you're making 65% of the journeyman scale, you were making 55. Live on 55%. And then when you're at 65, when you go to 75, live off of 65, right? If you can establish some sort of disciplined habit, right, that's gonna help you grow, right? So wherever you are in those things, some sort of incremental step to start making some change, and then just the consistency, but you've got to have the discipline that will allow to build to a habit. But once you start seeing success, right? You know this, when you started seeing weight like shed off, like, man, how motivating is that, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have scripture memorized, right? And so, Jesus wept, right? That's a verse, right? You start finding a place where you can do one verse that you're trying to memorize. And then you'll find that you're able to start memorizing scripture, right? But you got to set out a little discipline to build to that habit. But success breeds success, and the whole flywheel principle, right? Once it starts spinning, man, and you'll also see that carryover goes into all other aspects of your life.
Correct.
That's one of the things I love about the physical side of things, is because you know, just like I talked about building the mental side of it, you start that just flows into so many other areas.
No, I mean, Andrew, you're exactly right. Physical change and transformation starts with your habits and your discipline, which bleeds over in all these areas of life. And you and I have talked about this, and we witnessed it. But that's why, me personally, I want to surround myself with people that are winners, right? And I don't mean winners in terms of the world's eyes. I mean winners in like they're winning with their physical body. They're winning in their relationships. They're winning in their faith. They're winning in their career the right way, you know, and but it all comes back to discipline and intentional habits. I'm going to talk about that in another episode, because the intentional habits are huge. Like, I wanted to lose weight for years, but I had no intentional habits around there, you know?
Well, and we walked that with you, right?
Yeah.
And so also trying to figure out how to support people in the midst of their journey.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there may be somebody that's listening and thinking, hey, I need to share this episode with so-and-so because he needs to get his life together, right? And hey, great, maybe that'll help. But, you know, you probably don't know this, but those core group of people that you talked about, we had some conversations that were really hard about how can we help Jay.
Yeah.
Like there was some time like we need to sit him down and have like a real almost like intervention, like look in the mirror kind of moment with you. And, you know, we decided, hey, we're just going to keep supporting and finding the way, right? Because unless it's, you know, if there's an issue of sin that needs to be addressed in someone, I'm fully willing to boldly confront them. But if it's not that, you know, that important, right? One of these secondary, tertiary kind of issues, right? Then let's just help support and be there for them.
But you guys did that, and I felt that, and that's why you're one of my closest friends. And I think that's why I wanted to share your journey and your story, because it was authentic. You know what I mean? Like, and, you know, I've known Andrew, the fit guy, you know, got your stuff together and all that. You never beat me out of the head, you know, Jay, you need to quit eating this. Jay, you always just encourage me, right? And now we can encourage other people together.
Yeah.
Which is, but I felt like at some point that y'all were having meetings and want to send me to fat camp. You know what I mean? I mean, I felt like that, but
there was a conversation.
But, you know, but that just shows the level. I mean, like, friends should care, right?
Yeah.
So that means you cared about me and you cared about people around you, and that's why you're who you are and what you're doing in life and all these things. And I'm excited to see, you know, what's next. I mean, you know, knowing you like I know you, do you have any other physical endurance tests that you're wanting to accomplish, or what's on the horizon for Andrew?
Yeah, I need a better answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been debating this because, you know, until you commit to whatever that is, right? You register for your first 5K, or you set a goal with a timeline and a date, and you write it down to make it real. It's really hard to make some change. And so I've been a bit wandering for the past kind of year with some of that stuff, because I thought about this thing and then I thought about that thing, and I've just kind of bounced around. I haven't really settled on something. And it's clear too that I haven't had a goal and objective that I'm working for, and I can see that affecting, you know, some of my challenge and push at times is not having something up there. So maybe we need to figure it out together.
Hey, we need to figure. Look, I'm in the same boat. We're doing the Mammoth March again in April, which we've done, right?
Right.
It's still 20-something miles. That's a great event. But really, I mean, we could go do 20-something miles tomorrow.
Sure.
And that's not push me. It's more of the community aspect is what I love about that. But I was thinking about that today. I was like, I wonder what Andrew is thinking, you know, because I you know, you're competitive, and this is something I didn't share. And it just came to me as you were talking, for those of y'all that don't know Andrew, he is a man's man. I mean, you are like, I call him the Renaissance man all the time. But you're a man's man. I mean, you're a big, tough guy, but you're also soft, kind-hearted, and compassionate, but also we're competitive, guys are competitive,
Sure.
people that are ex-athletes or that are, competed at whatever in life, you're a competitor. So I was like, I wonder what Andrew is wanting to compete in next. Cause I'm in the same boat. I've been thinking about that, working with my health coach, and I want to run a marathon. And when I say run, I mean, I use that loosely. I actually, I text you about
intermittent jogging.
Yeah, intermittent jogging.
Term we came up with one time for your running.
Yeah, intermittent jogging. Actually, another friend of ours is going to copyright that, but intermittent jogging. But I'm going to run walk one, and that would be huge for me, from where I've come from. But I was thinking, I was like, I wonder what Andrew's got in, because competitive people like challenges, and that's what helps us to grow. And it's interesting because the outdoor community, it's just such a great community of people, from all walks of life. But there's a lot of places like, with our LNH group, want to plan some travel out west and do some different things, Yosemite and Grand Canyon. Want to hike. I want to hike the Grand Canyon out of it. That's a really cool deal, So there's a lot. Hey, we might get together on that. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Do the, was it ridge to ridge?
Yeah. Ridge to ridge. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, look, this has been an incredible episode. And I think the listeners that we attract on the Win Today with Jay, these are the type people that want to hear these stories. They want to hear people winning like you are. You're winning in life, you're winning with your family, you're winning with your fitness. But, and I think we confuse, fitness and the physical aspect and transformation. Like, we don't have to be professional athletes,
Right.
There's a lot of people walking around every day that are accomplishing great things that most people would never know, what I mean? And it's just interesting because I think, being, I joke with you all the time about being a Renaissance man, but that's a well-rounded person that has a lot of different interests and different things. I mean, foster parent, business leader, men's ministry guy, avid outdoorsman. I mean, that's a lot of things, big Alabama fan, you like sports, so it's, I have loved having you on the show, brother. I mean, this has been great. And I think for our listeners and viewers, they're going to really glean from this. And because I think you're a great example of what consistency and true compassion and being a real friend. I was listening to you talk just about going up to Missouri to show up. I mean, who does that, right? I mean, you just showed up at the 40-mile, to run 40 miles with that guy. Yeah. I mean, out of the blue, and he had no idea.
No, he was shocked. Yeah.
There's a handful of people, and when I say handful, like 3 to 4 in my life, I know thousands of folks that would do something like that. And it just shows who you are. But man, I just wanted to wrap this episode up and just, I think this is a great episode of endurance, grit, faith, consistency, and being real too. That's one thing that I've always loved about Andrew. You're always real. If I want a real honest opinion, I'm going to call you, and I've asked him a lot of tough questions before, but that's awesome. That's what I think. So, me, I'm such a people pleaser by nature. Sometimes I don't want to be fully transparent with someone because I'm afraid I'll hurt their feelings, Yeah. Not that you're harsh or anything, but I've always respected that. Like, hey, Andrew, he'll give me his honest opinion. Let me ask him this, and that's something I think that's a great quality of what you bring.
Well, to me, you've got to love people enough to tell them the truth.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times, especially in our modern culture and society, where that love is turned into acceptance of anything. And the reality is that doesn't align with Scripture, right? And so there's, I've loved our friendship and the opportunity. Look, and your positivity is radiant, and I know, if I'm having a bad day, a lot of times you don't even know this, but if I'm just riding in the car and I'm just kind of whatever, just hadn't been great on things, I'm like, man, I'm just going to call Jay, and I don't have to bring up anything. I'm just going to get some just joy that comes out of Jay, and so I'm so excited to continue to see where you go on this journey and where it takes you, because it's something that, I can admire from up close, and just excited for you, man.
Man, thank you, brother. Well, look, I hope you guys go check out Andrew. Go to manchurch.com and see where your events are. I think they got some local events in Birmingham coming up.
Yeah. There's always stuff going around. I know Rick was out Sunday night. There's people everywhere always doing something. It's a great place to get plugged in and connected to anybody out there that's just, looking for something to do. Themanchurch.com, find out something you can join in and get a band of brothers there.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, come hike with us. We usually go every Saturday morning. If you're in the Birmingham area, we have some listeners in different states, but just be a part, man. And wherever you are today, be a winner. Go inspire someone. If you gained anything from listening to Andrew today, it's about, an inspiration, compassion, character, consistent. So, start with those small changes. So look, you're on the Jay Bradford Show, Win the Day with Jay. And it was amazing to have Andrew. Man, I'm so excited about this episode, but I hope our listeners really, really take those values to heart. And this is Jay, and we are out.